Computer Programming Essentials, Unit 4, Part 1. In this unit, we are going to go over parts of Chapter 3, not all of it, just part of it. So make sure that you pay close attention to the PowerPoint slides and let them be your guide as you work through this chapter, because you don't need to read all of it, you just need to read the first half and then a little bit at the end. We're going to learn about method calls and placement. We're going to be able to identify parts of a method, to write our own methods, to add parameters to methods, and to create methods that return values. A method is a program module, so it's a group of statements that carries out a specific task. We talked about this in Chapter 1 and called it a procedure. Methods and procedures are the same thing. I have no idea why in programming sometimes they have 2 or 3 terms to describe the exact same thing, but they do. So method, procedure, same thing. To execute a method, we have to call it or invoke it from another method. The first method that runs in Java is the main method. And for this class, all of the methods that we invoke or execute will be called from main. A method can call another method. When a method makes a call, when it invokes another method, we call that the client method. And the called method is the one that is invoked. So if I was asking my daughter to go to the store for me, I would be invoking the go to the store method, and my daughter would be the called method as she goes to the store. Here's an example. This is a call to a method called name and address. Notice that the method name has no spaces, no special characters, and it starts with a lowercase letter. All method names are followed by a set of parentheses. The parentheses can be empty, or they can have something in them. So take a look at name and address. That's followed by an empty set of parentheses. But on the following line, we have system.out.println, which is calling a method, the println method, and inside those parentheses, we have the string constant, first Java application. So that is passing a piece of information to the println method, so the println method can do its job. In the case of name and address, I can tell from this method call that it doesn't need any other information from the caller to be able to do its job. So the main method executes automatically when we press the run button. All other methods need to be called in order to run. So you can place additional methods above the main method or below the main method. Look at this class very closely. Public class first, followed by an open brace on the next line, and the corresponding close brace is down at the bottom. All the methods need to go inside the class. You cannot create a method that is outside the class. So everything that you create must go between the open brace and the close brace for the class. However, you cannot create a method inside another method. So notice that these comments, you can place additional methods here, are above, before, or below, after main, not inside main. You would not define a method inside a method. A method must include a method header, which is also called a method declaration, and a method body. That's contained in a pair of curly braces, an open brace and a close brace, and it contains the statements that carry out the job, that do the work of the method. The method body is also called the implementation. So the implementation of the method is the statements that you execute inside the method. Here's an example. Again, we're looking at name and address. Look inside the main method and find name and address, and that invokes or calls the name and address method. Now below main, we see public static void name and address. Public static void name and address is the method header for that method, and that marks the beginning of that method. When we call it, the call would transfer control to the method header, and the method body would get executed. System.out.println XYZ company, system.out.println 8900 US Highway 14, system.out.println Crystal Lake, Illinois 60014. Those 3 lines would be printed as a result of the call to name and address. When the name and address method is finished, at that closing brace, it would transfer control back up to where it was called and then execute the line that follows. So the output of this particular program, this class, would be XYZ Company, 8900 US Highway 14, Crystal Lake, Illinois 60014, first Java application. First Java application would follow the name and address. Can you see why? The method header contains 4 different parts. First, the optional access specifiers. In this class, we will always start our method headers with public static. In subsequent classes, if you continue on to AP, we can learn some variations there. But for this class, methods will always start with public static. Followed by a return type. Name and address returns void. That means it returns nothing. So we have public static void. The same is true with the main method. It's public static void main string args. The return type is void, meaning the method does not return anything. We'll see, and later on in this chapter, we'll see how we can use different return types to return different types of data. Followed by, after the return type, we have an identifier. That's the name of the method. You should write this in your notes. The identifier in this case is the same as the method name, and it follows all the rules that we've learned so far about naming identifiers. In the case of this example, the identifier is either main, that's one of the methods, or name and address, that's the other method in this class. Following the identifier are a set of parentheses, and the parentheses can contain something or they contain nothing, and we'll see a difference here shortly. You place the entire method within the class that will use it, but not within any other method. You can't declare a method inside a method, but you must declare a method inside a class.